Second time this year, I'm getting to speak to Philip Bloom, who is very well known in the video community for shooting with the EX1 and the lettuce. Philip, tell us about the lettuce which you have in front of you. When I spoke to you last, you had a pre-production model, so what have you got now?
Yeah, last time we met in Vegas, accidentally, it was the prototype, the first one they made, and it produced beautiful pictures, but it broke down in Japan. It lasted about 3 or 4 weeks after you saw me with it. This is the first production model in Europe, and it looks a hell of a lot better than before. You've got some nice blue back focus adjustments, but basically the same concept is still there, and it's actually sharper than the original prototype as well.
Okay, so are you pretty happy with this? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I've had a second prototype before I got this one, and I've been shooting with that for the past month and a half, and it's brilliant. I've not had a chance to use this yet. It's been on display since I got it. I picked it up on the way to the airport, almost missed the flight, but it's now here and people can touch it, which I'm not particularly keen about because it's mine, but I might get it professionally cleaned or valeted later.
Okay, and tell us, how much do you have to pay if you want to buy one of these?
If you want to buy one of these in Europe, you've got to speak to Mitcorp because they are the official dealers in Europe. And the great advantage of buying it in Europe is you're not paying all the duty and shipping. You pay a premium, but you have your dealer in Europe if it goes wrong, which is really important. Now, for if you're in the States or in other places, buy it directly from Letus because it makes sense. But in Europe, I think you should really get it from a dealer because everybody knows when you buy gear goes wrong, and if you have to spend 150 bucks to ship it back each time, plus fill out paperwork, it's not worth the hassle.
Sure. Okay, now I can see that there's some really interesting looking arms wielding off this piece of equipment. What's it all about? Is that for going handheld?
Yeah, with the EX1, it's not, they didn't design it for 35mm adapters. You put one of these on there, you end up with a really ridiculously front-heavy device. And what you've got here is you have these Zacuto rails. Zacuto are this small company in the States who make, I think they're Chicago, they make this incredible modular gear. Basically you can attach anything you want to it. And like what we have here is an IZX battery which is powering the Letus Ultimate, and it can also power your monitor or whatever, and it's being used as a counterbalance as well. So when you have it on your shoulder, and you can actually have a proper balanced camera. And these handles at the front here are just for obviously just holding the grip. But it's really designed for when you're shooting dramas and things, and you have a focus puller who will do that job for you.
Okay, now how much taken used to does it get working with one of these 35mm adapters to start knocking out the results that you're doing? And you could say 20 years worth of experience, but...
Yeah, a lot of people ask me the question, they say to me, I want to shoot like the stuff that you do, and they want to know what gear I have so they can copy me, so they can shoot in the same sort of style. And it isn't about buying a 35mm adapter, it's about learning your camera and learning how to use your camera and learning how to frame and all of that. And having an adapter makes things look better, but you don't necessarily need it to actually be good at what you do. You just need to get out there as much as possible and film everything you can see. It's like with stills, you don't need to have the best digital SLR. You could have a snappy camera and get some beautiful pictures. You just need to look and use your eye. But using something like the Ultimate, it doesn't take that much getting used to because it operates much the same way as a normal lens, because you can stop down, you can use shutter, and everything's great. But with the Extreme, it's a great piece of kit still, but the problem you've got is that you are limited to the amount you can stop down. So it's kind of ironic that it's priced more at the beginner user, but the beginner user would be more successful with their results with the advanced piece of kit because it's way more forgiving. The image out of this is so incredibly sharp, and what I find the best thing about it is using this will make the ordinary things look quite extraordinary, just the way it looks.
Okay, so if someone's going to set themselves up with one of these, they've got to buy the adapter and they've got to buy some lenses. Mm-hmm. What lenses do you need? Say 2 or 3 of the absolute recommendations from Philip.
When you buy this adapter, you've got to buy some support rails because it's so heavy. You put that on the filter ring, you're going to damage your camera. So you've got to have something that's going to take the weight. And you can use still lenses on this rather than having to spend thousands on cinema lenses. I use Nikon lenses because they're easily available, second-hand on eBay. I bought most of mine off eBay originally. And I have upgraded to newer stuff since. But the second-hand ones from the 70s, 80s are all great and work brilliantly. They made them so well, they made them to last. You've got to get a wide-angle lens, something around a 28mm. You've got to get a standard lens, which is a 50mm, and you've got to get a portrait lens at about 85mm. And they've got to be as fast as possible, f1.4, around that.
Okay, now if you put a 28mm lens onto your camera, are you getting a 28mm lens?
Yeah.
There's no magnification?
The image of the 35mm lens is projected onto a 35mm framed piece of glass in here. You're zooming into that and you're recording that, so you are getting a true 35mm frame. Now, if you put a 35mm lens on a camera with a small sensor, it's magnified 7 or 8 times, which makes it completely useless. Like you can buy on the Canon XL series, they had an adapter for the EOS lenses, and they thought, oh, that's great, you can put those lenses on, but you're looking at 7, 8, 9 times magnification, which means if you're shooting a bird in a tree, a mile over there, it's great, but if you're shooting you, all I'm going to get is your eye.
It could be advantageous for depth of field reasons, but at other times it's going to make...
Not at all.
You don't think so?
No, putting a 35mm still lens on a video camera with a small chip is not going to affect the depth of field in the slightest, because the chip is still a small chip. What you're doing is you're losing all of the other image. That's not changing depth of field, it's just losing the image. You need to have a bigger sensor.
What about the fact that the EX3, which is the newer of the cameras, actually has interchangeable lenses? How do you work with the latest then? Does it still go onto the lens at the front?
Yeah, this is the EX3, and it's got this great viewfinder, which anybody who looks in falls in love with, and yes, it has removable lenses. Now, the great thing about this is you can put on half-inch glass, that, like I have on my f350 full-size camera. But yeah, you can put the Extreme and the Ultimate directly on this with a thing called a relay lens, which is coming out soon, and that is a fixed focal length, fixed focus lens, which it's quite small, quite stubby, and it takes away the whole length of basically this lens here.